Times of turbulent weather are making us all too aware of the powers of nature. Sometimes we feel its force through natural disasters, but every day the world's tested by nature's might. Whether in the sun-scorched deserts of the Middle East or the mountains of the Andes, weather sweeps across the planet and can transform it at astonishing speed. Sometimes even the Earth itself seems to fight back. Despite the challenges, animals have adapted to cope, and so can we. The Earth's governed by several monumental forces of nature, but none with the power of heat. The Earth's warmed from within. And baked by the sun, a giant star over 100 times the size of Earth. The center of our solar system. At its core, it's thought to be about 15 million degrees centigrade. Heat at its most unimaginably destructive. But without the sun, life on Earth would be impossible. Its heat fuels life, sending the energy plants need to produce our breathable atmosphere. But where the Earth's at its closest to the sun, it gets hot. So hot that it pushes life to its limits. Deserts cover a fifth of the Earth's surface. As the planet rotates and the sun beams down over the day, temperatures can reach over 50 degrees C. Meerkats have bandit eye masks to help reduce the glare of the sun bouncing off their cheeks. Their dark bellies can absorb the warmth on a cold morning, like a solar panel to warm them up. But by day, their pale fur reflects some of the sun's heat. They're good at withstanding the hot, but not so good at cold. They absorb warmth during the day to charge them up for the night. Because they harness the sun's power to warm their bodies, they don't need to generate as much internal heat as other mammals. Their metabolism is about 40% lower than an average mammal. This means they can cope with less food in their bleak home. Getting through the day is one thing, but they must also tackle the night. As the planet twists, the deserts moved to darkness. There's little moisture, no cloud cover to buffer temperatures, and they plummet. The meerkats snuggle together in their burrow to stay warm. The stresses of hot days and cold nights is enough to crack rocks, which, further eroded by wind, are ground down to make chokingly fine sands. Sands are picked up by the wind and act as a sandblaster, adding further abrasion to rock faces. Sand making sand. Deserts can make themselves bigger. The whole time, the sun bakes the earth. It might get a little rain, but more's lost to evaporation than will ever fall. Animals and plants here live with perpetual thirst. They are some of the most specialized inhabitants of the planet. The desert hedgehog has long legs, lifting his body high off the ground and minimizing contact with the hot sand. His large ears are rich in blood vessels, so the tiniest breeze can help cool his body temperature. He forages for any small creatures he can find. He's mostly nocturnal, hunting when it's cooler. When the sun rises, it doesn't take long for the mercury to climb. So he gathers food as fast as he can. But ultimately will need to take refuge, using his burrow to beat the heat. His neighbor has a more makeshift approach. The toes of an agama lizard have comb-like scales to help them grip the sand, but they also help it dig. A quick shimmy, and it has an instant shelter. A lightning-fast transformation that can help it hide from predators, but more importantly, can get its body out of the direct sunlight before it's barbecued. The sand below the surface is cooler, bringing relief to his body. Day in, day out, the heat is a challenge, but deserts have the ability to crank it up. A sandstorm. An airborne cloud of dust picked up by the wind. A shimmy will save the agama. Its eyes are shielded from the sand by long scales that act like eyelashes. The storm's intensity grows, and all animals must take cover. But this is just a spoiler, a taste of what's to come. A choking wall of debris over a kilometer high, plunging the desert into darkness as it rumbles overhead. The cloud will eventually pass. The creatures here know how to beat the storm. Even big animals need shelter, and more than anything from the unforgiving sun. Deserts are typically vast, open stretches of land. There's little cover. Animals track to the sparse vegetation looking for shady retreats. A sunscreen's a commodity that's in short supply. The camel thorn acacia is a desert specialist and one of the few trees big enough to offer sanctuary to the largest desert dwellers. Out here, its dappled shade can literally make the difference between life and death. But to support its 9-meter crown, it needs roots running 16 meters deep. Tap roots to drill for water buried far beneath the earth. Elephants are diggers too. Their incredible memories and sense of smell lead them to underground watercourses, where some heavy digging might result in a tiny sip of life-saving water. When the roasting gets too much, they can head back and barge their way into the already crowded cover of the trees. Thanks to their adaptations, African ground squirrels don't need to fight for shade. They have another neat trick. They need to frequently forage, but there isn't much food left in the shady spots. It's too hot to be out in the sun, unless you can carry protection. This rodent knows how to raise the roof. A portable parasol. Wearing shades, the squirrels can spend longer out in the open. Their shady tricks can reduce their body temperature by 5 degrees, and here, every degree counts. Bellies full, the squirrels make the bed, a day bed, by shoving the topsoil aside to expose the cooler dirt beneath. Time to sprawl. Every desert dweller has its own means to beat the heat. American jackrabbits have enormous ears, exposing a network of blood vessels to even the gentlest breeze. Birds like the roadrunner do the same by panting, drawing air over the thin skin of their throats. The lives of animals would be impossible without plants, but even they struggle against the power of heat. Desert plants have long roots, digging deep into the ground to search out the tiniest hint of moisture. Some have thick, waxy leaves. These are water tanks. Known as succulents, they quickly absorb any moisture they can and store it in their leaves and stem. The wax on the leaves seals in the moisture, and its shiny surface helps to reflect the sun to stop overheating. Their shallow roots are close to the surface, meaning they can tap into morning dew from the ground before it evaporates. Plants need carbon dioxide to turn it to food, but absorbing it through their leaves can lead to the escape of water. So some plants take in the carbon dioxide at night. Other plants are covered in fine hairs that create tiny amounts of shade to help keep the leaves cool. Living stones are miniature succulent plants that don't look like plants at all. Their tiny bodies are camouflaged on the desert floor, making them harder for grazers to spot. White minerals in their skin help to reflect the sun to prevent becoming char-grilled vegetables. Deserts don't get a lot of rain, but just a few drips are enough to trigger the release of seeds from the living stones. They will grow within hours to make the most of the precious moisture. Many plants are expert at storing water, and few more so than the icon of the desert, the giant saguaro cactus. In sun-baked Arizona, where you could fry an egg on the rocks, the saguaro stays plump and green. The giant trunks grow slowly, taking half a century before growing their first limb, and living for 200 years. Their water collecting strategy is to have shallow but widespread roots so they can absorb drips of rain over a large catchment area. Woody ribs support the flesh body and enable it to hold 2 tons of water. They can tower over 20 meters tall, the height of a 4-story building. But because of their shallow root system, they can sometimes topple. It's a fine line, risking collapse under the weight of your water store or not having enough water. Water's one thing that can never be taken for granted. In the Australian outback, droughts can last for decades, and all life is punished by the power of heat. There are scattered oases, artificial water holes, where water's pumped from the underground reservoirs to feed livestock, an unintentional lifeline to wildlife. Birds can fly huge distances in search of food and water. When it gets really hot and dry, the classic Aussie icon, the budgerigar, takes to the wing. Normally, the gaudy little parakeets spread out across the desert in small groups to find food. But when water becomes this scarce, they must venture to water holes. However, predators know this and stake out the pools. The budgies have one strategy to give them a fighting chance. Safety in numbers. As if by magic, birds from all over the desert pick up a cue and come together as one. A murmuration, a shimmering mass of 10,000 birds. The chaos of the flock makes it much harder for a predator to target an individual in the crowd. With the clouds whirling overhead, the birds take turns to dash in for a quick drink. Their larger cousins, corellas, do the same. And all the commotion has attracted trouble. A dingo. No one's sure how long dingoes have been in Australia. It could be thousands or tens of thousands of years. They've been here so long that they have become an important part of the local food chain. But this male's clearly feeling the effects of the sun's heat. In this time of hardship, food's scarce, and his body condition has deteriorated. Weak and emaciated, the best this dingo can do for now is quench his thirst. Nearby, there's another casualty of the summer heat wave. A wombat. Run down and hungry, it's more susceptible to infections and disease. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Rain clouds are slowly starting to form on the horizon. But for this individual, it might be too late. He fell just short of the finish line. The rain arriving just hours too late. But the fresh rainfall will revive the rest of his colony and breathe new life into the oven-baked desert. When drought hits the African plains, it brings new challenges to all forms of life. Animals must trek to the shrinking waterholes as the life-saving commodity becomes scarce. Fish that once swam in rivers and lakes find themselves trapped in ever smaller pools. They become easy targets of hungry birds. For these opportunists, drought's their friend, providing rich pickings for now. All animals must seek water. Even giant crocodiles haul their huge bulk in search of the last deep pools. They too benefit from the trapped fish. Or can take advantage of the many fishermen, driving the marabou storks from their catch. Most fish are trapped, caught between predators and the baking sun. But there are a few that know how to weather the warm. Lungfish could be described as living fossils. They haven't changed in 400 million years. Like most fish, they breathe by passing water through gills, but these fish have also developed basic lungs. It means they're not afraid of being left high and dry. In fact, they leave the water under their own volition. Like the first fish that took to the land and gave rise to all modern backboned animals, they walk, breathing air with lungs. The lungfish find a muddy spot and dig themselves in. Here they excrete a mucus cocoon and seal themselves in. They enter a state of torpor, a hibernation to escape drought, and can stay sealed up in their anti-drought bunkers for several years. If scientists can unlock the lungfish's secrets, they might one day be able to put humans into a similar slumber for deep space travel. But for now, it helps the fish to beat the heat. Overhead, the mercury rises. Nature's forces testing animals to the max. Nervous plant eaters line up, all desperate to quench their thirst. They must drink, and the predators know it. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, there are dangers at every turn. Trying to find safer drinking spots can mean taking terrible risks. The constant footfall of heavy drinkers churns what's left of the water into the earth. Tiny puddles become surrounded by a moat of mud. To get to clean drinking water, animals must risk getting stuck. But they're desperate. It's drink or die. In the constant coming and going of thirsty wildebeest, a mother doesn't realize that her calf is stuck. He wriggles free, but gets left behind. Death looms close. He has equal chances of being picked off by an opportunistic predator or being baked by the sun. It's now a race against time. He's too young to live without his mother's milk, but that's the least of his worries. In times of drought, every animal is desperate and will take every opportunity to feed. There are deadly threats everywhere. The calf's running out of time, and now even his own kind seem to turn on him. Feeling the pinch from the weather, other mothers are quick to guard their milk supplies, reserved only for their calves. The youngsters moved on. The calf should be doomed. But not far away, an adult wildebeest is acting strangely. She's going around checking out calves. It's his mother, a rare happy ending in a time of hardship. In arid landscapes, where seasons can bring endless sun and little rain, animals must move on to escape famine. On the Eurasian steppe, saiga antelope use their unmistakable noses to filter choking dust kicked up by the herd. They're also adapted to cope with the heat. The huge nasal cavities are full of blood vessels, meaning the passing air can help to cool them down. They can cover more than 100 kilometers a day in their punishing march. Climate change is putting these charismatic creatures under high pressure. Colder winters and longer periods of drought can result in starvation and spread of disease. An annual trek of over 1,000 kilometers is their best bet against the sun's desiccation of their grassland home. Animals that face the power of the sun on a daily basis are some of the toughest on Earth. On the dry plains of the Caucasus, goited gazelles don't look particularly tough as they trot nervously around on delicate, pencil-thin legs. They form large herds to migrate in winter, but in summer they split into smaller groups that have less impact on the sparse vegetation. True desert specialists, they can get most of their moisture from the withered plants they eat. But to do that, they need to consume 30% of their body weight every day. And when summer temperatures climb into the 40s, it's not always enough. But to fight the forces of nature, these gazelles have an incredible ability. They seem to have discovered a vast lake, a much-needed waterhole. But this is the Caspian Sea. Very few mammals can tolerate such high levels of salt. But goited gazelles have kidneys designed to cope, a lifesaver in this land of extremes. They're not the only animals with incredible resistance. Under the boiling sun, water evaporates, sometimes leaving dissolved minerals. In the shrinking bodies of water, they become more concentrated, but flamingos seek them out. They like to breed in the middle of alkaline lakes, so caustic that other animals steer clear, meaning the birds are less likely to be disturbed. They like to feed in very salty bodies of water, using their peculiar downturned beaks to sift brine shrimps from the water. The shrimps themselves sift microscopic red algae from the water, and the red pigment builds up in their bodies. The colors passed on up through the food chain and provide flamingos with their dazzling pink hues. For desert creatures that have survived the cooking sun for months or even years, relief eventually comes. Rain clouds build. Desert storms, this time in Africa, can be hard-hitting and intimidating. Meerkats seek shelter in an underground bunker. But while they go underground, the light rain seems to coax other creatures from their grave. The lungfish emerge from their tombs. Just the tiniest traces of water bring instant changes to the landscape. South African deserts are quickly blanketed with wild flowers. And all cash in, fueling up before the heat returns to dry them out. But storms bring more than just rain. A dramatic but sinister force of nature. The movement of water molecules in the clouds generate positive and negative charges. These are normally insulated by the air, but as pressure builds, the charges overload and burst through the insulation. They collide. The spark heats the air to 10,000 degrees, causing the air to rapidly expand. It tears open, making the ominous rumbles of thunder. The growling skies can be heard 40 kilometers away. It's another display of the power of heat, and, in an arid landscape, one that can spell disaster. It only takes one spark. The dry grass is like kindling. Fires can spread with incredible speed, seemingly destroying everything in their path. They're devastating. In the USA alone, there are around 100,000 wildfires a year, clearing an astonishing 2 million hectares of land. The fires race across dry vegetation at over 20 kilometers an hour. The inferno can burn at more than 800 degrees, engulfing all organic matter. The situation looks hopeless. But like all forces of nature, there are two sides to the story. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, a bird appears in the smoke. Birds of prey, and especially kites, spot wildfires and dart in. As insects and small animals flee, they'll be easy to pick off. In some areas, kites are even known to pick up burning branches and move them to spread the fire and flush out more food. Bird vandals, pyromaniacs, or perhaps they're landscape gardeners. Lots of small wildfires are good for everyone. They clear out the dry vegetation before it builds up. If there are no small fires, then this plant fuel builds. And when lightning inevitably strikes, the biggest, hottest, and most deadly fires are unleashed. Little creatures perish, barbecued by the flames. But they feed hungry scavengers who follow the flames to feast on the char-grilled remains. Plants are engulfed, but this act of destruction is also one of creation. Many trees and shrubs need the flames to cleanse their bark and rid them of parasites. They have flame-retardant bark so that enough of the tree will survive and can regrow. It's also the flame's heat that opens their seeds, helping them to germinate. And finally, the burnt vegetation provides a rich layer of ash, a fertilizer, accelerating the fresh growth, rebuilding the aftermath. Our planet's governed by the power of heat, but also shaped and nurtured by it. It can be devastating, but also giving, creating new opportunities. There's no doubt we live in turbulent times. Climate change is cranking up the dial, and we're seeing temperature extremes. The Earth is a carbon-rich planet. Fire and the drying effects of the sun have been part of life on Earth from the very beginning. But things are changing, and humans are partly responsible. We clear cut forests, releasing more carbon into the air. And replace the oxygen-producing trees with methane-releasing livestock. We've covered the whole planet in polluting factories and endlessly burn fossil fuel to try and meet our energy needs. As a result, we've changed the Earth's atmosphere, trapping heat. Our world is getting hotter. And with it, natural disasters are becoming more extreme. For decades, we've practiced bad management of dry lands, overgrazing them or removing too much vegetation when we harvest, stripping nutrients and structure from the soil, leading to desertification and dust storms. Dust storms further strip the exposed earth. The storms have increased tenfold in 50 years. But it's not all doom and gloom. If we can learn from our mistakes, we can improve our situation. We can be more careful in the way we manage the land. We can use less damaging methods of generating power. Heat can be a destructive force, but it's also the energy that sustains life. Animals have learned to adapt and live with its deadly extremes, and we can too.